So the mower's arrived on a slightly collapsing pallet. The challenge I've got now is how to get it off. I haven't quite worked this one out yet. So compared to the petrol mower that I had before, obviously from a maintenance point of view this is a pretty simple thing, and I like the fact that the guidance for maintenance broadly is keep it clean, check the tyre pressures, and that's pretty much it. So no worrying about old fuel gumming up carburetors or anything else. So the charger plugs into a standard 3-pin 240 volt plug. It's quite a chunky affair. It's got big aluminium casting with heat fins and a fan, and it plugs into the back of the mower here. This is obviously designed to be bolted onto a wall ideally, so I'll get onto that, but for the moment that's just where it is. Unfortunately, when you're charging, it doesn't tell you, you can't read off your state of charge because it disables the control, which is sensible enough, I guess. But there is a small lit LED flashing away there, showing charging, and it does go green apparently when it's full. The grass box does sort of swing from side to side rather a lot, and I just thought I'd have an investigation of why that is so mobile. This is the reason why that grass box sort of moves around a bit. It just sits on a bracket which sits on the plate here, which would normally have an option to put a little towing hitch if you wanted one, and it sort of is not great really. It's just sitting on a pin there which goes through there with a clip on it. There is some rubber on the inside of the top here, but it just doesn't seem to be very good. So I think that's just going to abrade the powder coating away and cause rust. So to avoid that, I've made a couple of rubber protecting pieces there and on there, and those I think will improve the way it sits. And there we are with the rubber protection in there. That's now much more solid and I think will work well. It's now a lot more secure. So just a bit of detail that was good feedback to the manufacturer, I think. But this is the Yard Force mower as it arrived pretty much. I was a bit concerned about the kind of information that would come with it, but actually I've been very impressed with the manuals. They're written in English, good English, not computer translated, and it's all pretty clear. Within the manual it suggested that actually I would have to fit the steering column and the seat because the standard delivery box is quite small, but having bought from Mow Direct in the UK, they'd already set up those, so they were all fitted, it was ready to go. I decided to buy the optional extra grass collection kit, which is the tube and the bags at the back there, and actually they were all pre-fitted by Mow Direct as well, so everything's effectively ready to go. As standard, you don't get this tube. Instead there's a sprung loaded flap down to side discharge, or if you want to mulch, this fits over and clips on to the side there to create a mulching deck. Part of having the grass collector is you need different kind of blades, and they come with it. They're more sort of give more lift, I suppose, to throw the grass through into the back of the collector. But again, those have been fitted for me, so I didn't have to do those. The collector has this little air-driven wheel that spins, and when that starts to slow down, you know that the grass is full. Slightly clunky, hard to open device here, sort of catch, but then these just slide out and you have your collection bags, and the grass itself is diverted from a pipe into them just sort of relatively evenly. We'll see how well that works. as far as I can see, the only thing I need to adjust before starting to use the mower is to move these wheels. These are anti-scalping wheels, and they're preset in the highest point here, but there are 4 different holes, different heights, and they need to be lowered slightly more. It doesn't say which one's best to use, so we'll see. We'll work that out, but I'll probably move them down to the bottom but one, just unbolt them and refit them. Okay, so that's what we've got. I'll walk through everything you can see. Control panel first of all. If you're not sitting in the seat, it beeps at you, just to really warn you that it's on. So I'll switch that off and climb on. So once you're on the seat, there's a sensor in there which stops the beeping noise. And what you have here is a panel which shows you the state of charge, 43% at this stage, on off, USB charging point, place to put your phone, forward, neutral and reverse. And again, whenever it's in reverse, you get a beep, headlight, and then this is the starter for the blades. The blades will run, I'm not going to put it on now because it gets noisy, but the blades will run in forward. When you go into reverse, in standard form, they switch off. However, you can have reverse mowing operations where you illuminate this switch, and then it will keep the blades going whether you're going forward or reverse, so useful if you're doing lots of little turns. The other button here is a cruise control, so once you've set your speed with your throttle, your pedal, you can just press cruise rather than having to keep the speed standard. So that's the layout here. In front of you, you've obviously got steering wheel, you've got brake to the left, accelerator to the right, and if you want to put the parking brake on, you push down on this, and then with the other foot, click down, release, and then that's locked. It says there. And then to release the parking brake, press the brake again, and it comes up. On the left hand side of the seat you have height adjustment, which is for the cutting deck with various heights in centimetres, or millimetres even, and a cup holder of course. And then the deck itself, cutting deck, has twin blades, each has its own motor, so it's direct drive, no belts involved. There's a cleaning port so you can plug in a hose and run for a minute at the end of your mow just to clean all the grass from underneath it. All seems fairly well done. It's all obviously powder coated, so we'll see how well that lasts. From an engineering point of view, it all looks pretty good really. The welds look quite good, powder coated. There was a bit of damage on mine when it arrived, so I'm going to put some paint on that so it doesn't rust, but it all seems to be well put together. And another thing I didn't mention, it's got a headlight if you want to mow at night, you would. So first impressions, generally, apart from the slightly poor design of the carrier for the grass collector, I think it's pretty good. When you lift the seat, it's obviously got a sensor in there to shut the blades off if you're not sitting in it, and there's the charging point. So an inner flap with a waterproof seal on it for the charging point, and the battery is underneath here. So the first cut, and I have to say it's very easy to drive, very manoeuvrable, really tight turning circle, much better than the petrol ride I had before. The grass cutter is interesting because that one's that full and that one's that full, so it's clearly not quite diverting enough grass into the evenly, so I guess that's just something I have to learn to live with, I think. But otherwise, yeah, so far so good. So I've discovered on this slightly longer grass, which is, to be honest, a bit damp, we are getting some blockages sometimes happening. So I've discovered it's good to go slow. So putting the cruise control on, just having a slow move, is good because it keeps the airflow going through the tube. If it does block, you have to effectively just pull this open, slide the tube out, and obviously it switches itself off when you're off. Reach in and clear the backlog, and then reconnect and put the rubber connector over again. So this little thing, you just keep an eye on it. It spins when it's the airflow's going. If it stops, it means there's a blockage. Definitely finding that it's filling the left-hand bag quite quickly, not the right-hand bag. So that's a bit of a pain because you could get more usage out of it, I guess. I haven't tried seeing what happens if you get it completely left-hand side completely filled and then where it spills over. I'm guessing not. I guess it probably just blocks it up. But otherwise, it's giving a very nice cut. So I won't show very well in this, but you can see the sort of before and after. And yeah, we're good. But the ground, grass is definitely a bit too damp for ideal cutting. Well, this is the second mow, perfect dry conditions, and it was going all very well, and then suddenly there was an almighty bang and stopped it immediately. And it turned out that the mower blade, I don't think you can see this, this is the lower section of the guide around the mower deck, and it's basically colliding with that. So this bit of metal just at the edge has bent up, and I'm not quite sure how or why. I don't think I hit anything, but it's just flicked up. So the blade is now hitting the thing as it goes round. So apart from damaging the edge of the blade, I've now got to try and bend this piece of metal back to try and flatten it, but I don't know quite what's caused it. So that was there's a worry for me. I think possibly the problem is that the blade is quite, I don't know if you see that against the mounting it goes onto. It's quite flexible up and down, and I think I ran over an apple, and it maybe just flicked this up enough. Well, it must have flicked it down. I don't know why it's done it, but I'm now going to just double check that they have tightened the bolt up properly on here. But certainly, you know, there's quite an appreciable amount of play available there, and it only needs it to drop a little bit and it hits the edge of this. So I've still got to bash this down further to try and get this clear. Well, I've bent that bent edge back as much as I can, but it's not as far as I want it to go, so I'm just going to switch the blades on, see if they hit. Well, they're okay at the moment, but there's not a lot of clearance, so we'll see. So I've now got the cutter deck off, and following on from the previous video, it's a bit clearer about what's gone on here. So I had to use the mower again because it's been nearly 4 weeks, I think it has been 4 weeks since I reported the first problem, and I had to mow. Unfortunately, I got another collision from the same place. As I said in the previous video, I wasn't sure I'd got that completely clear, and that's caused some collateral damage to the edges of the blade. If you look at the previous video, when it first happened, that dent damage there wasn't there, so that's been from today, which has been, I think, a piece of this metal has flown off and damaged it. Anyway, so what we have here is the blades go this way around. So this is a sort of guide plate to feed the grass towards the exit, and as you can see, there's a clearance, so there's no way that could collide at all. Then there's a second small guide plate which is welded on here. And this is the problem. So it overlaps, and there's only probably 6 mil, 5 mil, and if I just put with one finger, you can see how easy it is to bend the blade. The blades are really quite flexible, and obviously there's not much clearance there. So what's happened, I think, is I've hit, I think it's an apple, the deflector blade on here has basically made the blade go down. It's caught that and then bent it, and then it ended up actually going the wrong side of this thing all the way around, I think. But basically now the bit I sort of ended up straightening is bent back up again, and bits have come off it, which is why I think this damage is caused here. So fundamentally I think the problem we've got is twofold. One, the blades are just quite flexible. I mean, I'm easily, with one finger, as I say, just quite easy to move those quite a long way in and out. And because this doesn't have a clearance like that one does, if it does move down, it's got nowhere else to go except to collide with this. So I do want this resolved. I like the mower overall. I think it's a really good bit of kit. It's just, well, the initial planning and conversations, and I was dealing only with Mow Direct, not with Yard Force, took about 4 weeks. But Yard Force picked up the deck, and only about 5 working days later it returned. And I'm sort of expecting them to just give us a new deck, which I'd have worried that they'll have the same problem once again of the blades potentially crashing into that guide. But what they've done instead is they've put on a new guide here, which I think is probably slightly thicker, I'm not sure. But it does seem to be, the clearance is greater, so that's about 15mm clearance. It was less than 10 before. The reason why it's also shiny, by the way, I've just put some Lanagard on there to try and stop it rusting over time. So they've done quite a tidy rust and a weld. Unfortunately, they wrapped it in a nice cloth to deliver it, and the paint wasn't dry, so that's why it's all a bit fluffy. But that's not a great problem. And they put a new blade on where the blade was damaged. So we'll see. I think I'm fairly impressed with their response. They obviously just haven't done a straight replacement. They've had to think about it. So I'm hoping that this will have solved me problems. So we'll put it all back together again and have a go. Well, I'm pleased to say that it all worked, and I'm very happy that it seems to be fixed. Although I cleared the orchard, I did actually on purpose run over an apple just to think, well, I might as well test it, and it jumped through it with absolutely no bother at all. So I'm pleased that although it took a bit of time, Yard Force up in York seemed to have kind of come up with a genuine fix rather than just a replacement. So all good. There's still a few bits. I've ended up sort of cable tying this to try and stop this thing rattling around, but it does, as you can see, wobble about still. So that's probably just needs sorting. I think it's not the end of the world, but it just annoys me. But otherwise, everything else, it cuts it really nicely, and it's just great not having a petrol motor to maintain. So overall, yeah, I think I'm pleased I've made the purchase, in spite of the slight hiccup in the process. Oh, and one final thing I didn't mention in the test before is when the blades aren't going, just using it to get around, it goes quite quickly.